All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining this educational webinar on the value of carrying a situational awareness camera. Before we get started, last week, SEEK made some big news with the announcement of the FirePro 300. It's a camera that we're really excited about. We're going to be displaying it at FDIC this year. So if you're in Indy, please come by, check it out, and give it a spin. FirePro 300 builds upon the success and really rapid adoption of the FirePro X, and we try to improve the camera in just about every way imaginable, listening to the feedback of our customers, experts that have been using the technology for years, experts like Andy Starnes of Insight Training, and really he's certainly been a man on a mission to improve firefighter safety. We're grateful to have his input in that camera, and we're very grateful to have him present to you today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Andy. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. So today is a presentation about the value of a situational awareness TIC, but it's a little bit more personal to me than that. I'm not here to sell you a camera. I'm here to share information with you that will hopefully save your life. There's been a lot of misinformation about thermal imaging in general. Some of it, well-intended, but we want to share some information that will help you in hopes that no matter what camera you carry, if something ever happens to you, you know how to use it to regain orientation. If you ever have the misfortune of finding yourself lost or disoriented, or having to rescue another downed firefighter. So let's talk about this in depth. Situational awareness versus decision-making TICs. This has been around a little while. I didn't come up with the concept. The term situational awareness thermal imaging camera was first introduced by Scott Safety in 2016 when the Scott site was produced. These devices are intended to prevent firefighter disorientation and are not designed to replace decision-making cameras. This is not in-depth conversation about situational awareness, and we'll talk about where that goes and who the experts are in that. We'll talk about the brain, the mind, and decision-making, but we're going to talk specifically about things like the U.S. Firefighter Disorientation Study by William Moore and others, where we define the loss of orientation as the loss of direction due to the lack of vision in a structured fire. I think I found it extremely interesting that out of all the hazardous occupations in the world that work in low light or zero visibility, all of them use some type of technological aid, extreme lighting, sonar, radar, night vision, infrared, as a fundamental part of their job, but yet firefighters still fail to carry or understand the importance of this device in an environment that's becoming increasingly worse due to the fuels that we're placing in our homes, and it's not going to get any better. This simple little video of the new FirePro 300 showing convection currents coming over this firefighter's head is just something that firefighters miss because we're in zero visibility and we have the illusion of protection with superior PPE that stops us from feeling, and we're in an environment where we can't see. So a simple little diagnostic tool can help us be aware of which way the firing is, changing conditions and things of that nature that we're going to discuss. I think it's interesting that I found this quote from Scott where it says, "Do you think the Scott site and mass thermal imaging will eventually replace handheld thermal imagers in the fire service?" Answer: no, it's not a replacement for high performance search and rescue thermal imagers available today. Think about that. A decision-making camera is designed to do so much more, and it's supposed to be in the decision maker's hands. However, situational awareness cameras should be on every firefighter in some way, shape, or form, but only if they are properly trained with them and how to use them in the event of an emergency. So it gives you a whole new level of safety and drive, as Scott says, in their different quote directly from the instructions. And my personal favorite is one of my friends and a guy I look up to, whether he knows or not, is Dr. Gasser. He's the expert on situational awareness. And if you look up his work, one of the quotes he says is, "We want to help you see the bad things coming in time to prevent bad outcomes." I highly recommend you look him up, scan that QR code, go straight to his website. I know firefighters don't type in hyperlinks very well, but I put this picture of a firefighter falling into a container where there was nothing but black toilet smoke coming out, but through the eyes of the FirePro 300, you can see the actual surface temperatures around him and what's occurring in a relative way that gives him a better idea of what he should have done before he fell 8 feet into the dragon's mouth. So these are things that we want firefighters to know. Please look up Dr. Gassaway and his work and some other people we're going to point out to you, because I'm not smart enough to risk your life on my opinion. I'm going to point to data. I'm going to point to line of duty desk. I'm going to point to research. And I want to point to experts in the field who know far better than I do, so you can have a wider perspective on this topic. And one of those is somebody that I've been reading a lot about. His name's William Morrow. He did a study called the U.S. Firefighter Disorientation Study, and he wrote a book called Preventing Firefighter Disorientation, and he defines this for us, and it's very impactful for me. The loss of direction due to the lack of vision in structure fire is one of the oldest and least understood and deadliest hazards of interior firefighting. However, with training, it can be prevented. I continue to see firefighters go in zero visibility and fail to use the camera when they need it. I'm not saying you should have it glued to your face. I'm saying it should be a diagnostic tool, and you should know when to use it and when to put it down and how that affects you. If you attend one of our classes, you'll learn really quickly that we don't want you to have that camera in front of your face more than 5 to 10 or 12 seconds at a time due to what it does to your eyes and your vision. But if you were equipped with a device that could help you in the event of an emergency, if you became lost, trapped, or disoriented, I think firefighters need to realize there are more than just line of duty deaths. There's line of duty injuries. According to the U.S. Fire Administration, from 2015 to 2017, 63,000 injuries occurred on the fire ground, which was 46% of them related to time off of work. And 18% of those injuries were due to firefighters becoming trapped, caught, or lost. Think about that. All those people spent time off from work. I don't know one firefighter that doesn't work at least 2 jobs. What happens when you're out of work, you can't provide for your family, you can't pick up your kids when it was something preventable. That's why I said you need to look up people like Dr. Gasaway so you can learn how to change decision making and then use this device to help you do that. So another thing that I think is rather coincidental, which I think the definition of coincidence, God working anonymously, the U.S. Firefighter Disorientation Study talks about 23 line of duty deaths. I went on the U.S. Fire Administration website and started Googling statistics, and from 2016 to 2022, 8-year study, 23 firefighters died due to being lost or disoriented. 10 volunteer, 9 career, 2 wildland, 1 wildland full-time, 1 wildland part-time. Now, you may think that's not a lot of people, but I'm sorry, if I take you away from your family today, they would care. One death that is preventable is too many, and we can fix some of that by helping take this information and study the line of duty deaths and things that have happened in our past and the mistakes we have all made, if we're honest, and understand that we have often pushed ourselves into environments that we could have fixed, mitigated, or changed before we stuck our head into the oven, like this picture from a Seek Fire Pro X in survey mode. It shows color beginning at 150 degrees and maxing out at 300. And anyone who knows everything that I preach about PPE understands what is happening to that 2 to 3 millimeter piece of polycarbonate known as your face piece at this point. That U.S. Firefighter Disorientation Study was 17 incidents, 23 line of duty deaths, many similarities that still cause maydays and line of duty deaths today. And the most impactful part of that study is something called the disorientation sequence. You identify how this happens. And what blows my mind is that study and many others from that point forward, we still have a problem with thermal imaging usage and proper training on these devices today. Today, in 2023, we have people who still don't understand them, still don't use them, and fire departments that ignore them and don't provide training on these devices or place these devices on the trucks to save firefighters' lives. You tell the public, hey, we better have a smoke detector to watch over you when you sleep, but what's watching over you when you're separated from a hose line, wall, search rope, or lost from your crew? Because I want you to think about this for a minute. According to Project Mayday, if a Mayday is declared, the state of readiness is 2.5 minutes. The time they enter the building is 3 minutes. Time they entry point to the firefighter, 6 minutes. Average time to rescue is 21 minutes with 21 firefighters. Average work time on an SCBA bottle varies, but anywhere between 15 to 18 minutes. 1 out of 5 RIT crews experiences a Mayday. Do you see why? They run out of air on the weight of trying to find them or bringing them out. And how about we give them a device that allows them to find them faster if we know the fact that most firefighters also self-rescue in addition to that. So if you look at this picture from Seek Thermal, the Seek Fire Pro X, you will see the hose line stands out loud and clear because the water is flowing cold. Now, I was somewhere just recently that during the winter, this hose line would be wet because it'd be the hottest thing in the room. But we need to understand that this device can help us find the hose line, find infrastructure, find our ways out, and use it as an emergency plan, a secondary means of orientation when we get in trouble. Because I want to ask you, every RIT class I've attended, all of these different firefighter search classes. What's your plan B? When you can't find the hose line, you can't find the wall, you can't find your crew, you're trapped, you're lost, you're disoriented. What is it? Because I hear a lot of things about Mayday and using my flashlight, this, that, and the other. But I want you to read about the firefighters who have died and realize they were as close as 10 feet from an exit to as much as 40 feet. In extreme cases, they were 80 to 200 feet. And if I have a device that allows me to see, get my eyes back, but get my sight back, as Seek Thermal says, it can give details of things that may help me, like layout, hose lines, fire location, door frames. Hey, how about drop tiles in the ceiling? I can follow that drop ceiling tile to a corner, drop down, find the top of a door frame, find my way out. Lots of things I could use this device for if I'm in trouble. And I can regain orientation by doing the following. I stop and use my techniques, my training first, listen, feel, use my flashlight, then use my TIC and scan for those things I talked about. Look for my crew. Maybe I'm just a few feet off. Maybe I crawled around a knee wall like I did once. That was not fun. And I want you to remember this. According to Don Abbott's work, God rest his soul, he did a phenomenal work for the fire service. I encourage you to look up Project Mayday online. 35% of all Maydays involve self-rescue. Self-rescue. They were able to get themselves out. What would happen if they had a device that allowed them to see and find their way out? According to Michael Whitty's research paper, Maximizing Thermal Engine Use in Emergency Services, which is one of my favorite papers, lost or disoriented firefighters who were equipped with a TIC and properly trained were able to find their way out 100% of the time. Is that not cheap life insurance? That's a Fire Pro X on your left, Fire Pro 300 on your right, showing you how detailed that image is. A trapped firefighter can relay more information to the team that's coming to get him or her about objects around them, orientation, condition, and that can help bring them some reassurance because they can see and calm them down. They can also use it to identify small objects they become entangled in. Many of you may not be aware of this, but most decision-making cameras on the market cannot focus in on an object closer than 3 feet. You hear that? If it's 3 feet or closer, it's going to look blurry or you're going to have problems with depth perception. The products made by Seek Thermal allow you to focus in on an object as close as 12 inches, such as coax cable wrapped around you, or something else you may not be able to see. Think about the value of that if you're stuck. And the other thing is, when we talk about teaching RIT, we want to locate and assess that down firefighter. We can do that more efficiently with the TIC usage. And the assessment phase begins prior to us actually putting hands on that fire. Where are they and what do they need? Is there a base piece in place? Is there bottle dart? Is there a regulator in place? Is there waist belt or waist buckle belt strapped? Pull tight. I can tell that by looking at this picture because I can see the actual dog ear pulled out at an angle, which means he's buckled and pulled that tight. His bottle is dark, which means he's been breathing. I don't know how much air he or she has, but if he's 6 feet from a door, I'm not going to use one of the 5 ways to connect him to air. I'm going to package and drag him out. That saves time. And a friend of mine, Jake Latson, says, when you're talking about RIT, we need to buy back time because we call Maydays late. I think that's a valuable statement. When we talk about SCBA and connections, if you look at a UAC or EBSS connection, when you pull the cover off, they are a shiny metal. I challenge you the next time you go into a training fire, a training environment, anything that's shiny, I need you to take your thermal imaging camera and look at it. Because low emissivity objects, shiny surfaces, show up differently on a TIC, such as the metal band on an MSA air pack, such as the UAS or UAC connection on an FCBA, such as the panic bar on a commercial door, such as the metal frame on a window when you need to find your way out. Think about that. So if I know more about what I'm looking at than what I'm looking through, I might know where to look and find my way out a lot quicker and save my life or someone else. Because your PPE in a high heat environment will absorb heat and blend in. And a lot of times it'll make you hard to see. So a firefighter who knows these things can find their way or find their friends. The other thing that we need to think about when we're talking about rapid intervention is how this happens. Why do we get in bad places? Hostile fire events, equipment failure, low air emergencies when we're greater than 60 seconds from an exit, pass activations, fall through or entrapment, entanglement, disorientation, collapse, medical emergencies. That's a big one. Loss of accountability. In that study that I talked about, the U.S. firefighter disorientation study, the loss of accountability or crew integrity was a big one. You can clearly see these 2 firefighters with the Fire Pro X. And And you can see the helmet, you can see his stickers. Stickers look a little rough. He's been doing some live fire training. You can see the reflective markings of his letters on his gear. You can see the regulator line. You can see the band on his air pack. You can see a lot of information that can help you regain accountability and find your people. The types of maydays that occurred, according to Don Abbott, number one was someone becoming lost. Number two was falling through a roof. Number three was falling into a basement. And a lot of documentation proves these crews get in trouble when they leave a hose line or become lost, trip, slip, or walk off the roof, floor collapse, usually on the fire floor or first floor where a firefighter falls into the floor below. Sadly, that happens a lot. And I suffered a major injury from falling through the floor, so I can identify with that. So if we identify these types of things happen a lot when maydays occur, not necessarily just line of duty deaths, but when firefighters get in trouble, we can also identify what we need to do to find them. And when you look at these maydays, out of 293 incidents, according to Don Abbott, 23% of those, 67 firefighters fell into a basement. 64 of them fell through a roof. 53 of them had air problems. 41 of them were trapped or entangled. And people laugh about the entanglement box. I think you might want to do that one. Lost or separated from a hose line. 42 of them. No communications. I know of one of that personally. 18 of those. Medical, 9 firefighters, only 3% were medical. This one right here struck me as extremely important. Operating above the fire accounted for 45% of all maydays. You want to know why I think that? Because when we're above the fire and we're in good PPE, without a thermal imaging camera, by the time we recognize rapid fire development, it's too late. And a device that helps you do that is staying on the charger, or your fire department hadn't upgraded or purchased a new one, and puts you in trouble. This is the disorientation that was identified in the U.S. Firefighter Disorientation Study. These types, I'm going to show you how you can help find your firefighters, how you can identify these things, and hopefully prevent these things from happening to you. Disorientation secondary due to flashover, the building flashes, the room flashes, causes confusion. Due to backdraft, due to prolonged zero visibility conditions. When he defines prolonged zero visibility conditions, you know what that definition is? Greater than 15 minutes. How many times have you been on a fire that it was heavy turbulent black smoke and they were in there 15 minutes? There's 23 incidents involved, or 17 incidents with 23 deaths that all cite this as a contributing factor. Disorientation secondary to collapse, secondary to steam development. I can tell you some ways to fix that. And this all comes from that study that I want to point out to you. So 100% of those cases, 23 firefighters that died, initiated an aggressive interior attack to locate and extinguish the fire. Guess what they all had in common? The majority of them had trouble locating the fire. The majority of them had trouble because they were in a prolonged zero visibility environment for greater than 15 minutes. 100% of those cases, company integrity was lost. 100% became separated from hose lines, or get this, confused when they came upon tangled hose lines or messed up hose legs. And we're taught to pick that hose up, fumble around, smooth bump to the pump. Not me. I'm going to point at the camera at it, and I'm going to follow the long black snake that veers at the lake, and I'm going to get out. Because when seconds count, we count seconds, according to Chief Reinwald, a good friend of mine. Okay? In 10 out of 17 cases, crew integrity was lost while evacuating the structure. You can dig into this study more. It's not a very long paper. I think it's written for firefighters because it's only about 20 pages. I'll attach the information at the end for you. But this is something that strikes me as a continuing thing I hear on the radios, University of YouTube, and my own department. I hear us having trouble to locate and extinguish the fire. If we would just apply tactical use of thermal imaging cameras during size up, entry and fire attack, it could lessen the problem. I want you to look through the eyes of a Fire Pro 300 when the nozzle is open and when the nozzle is closed, and they can't see any of this and what's happening above their head. Notice when the nozzle's open, the convection current stop. As my good friend Dennis McGear says, we're going to reverse the flow path. You can't see that with your eyes. You can try to read smoke all you want in zero visibility and your helmet camera can't see anything. You need a device that helps you spot check your performance and your efforts. So let's talk about those issues that cause disorientation. One of those was due to heat, secondary to flashover, backdraft, or I like to call them rapid fire development, because it doesn't matter what it is when you're in it, it's bad. My question to you is, if you're using a situational awareness TIC, when does that produce saturation? The old term whiteout now is red out. Everything reds out, or the camera basically quits working because of too much heat. You can't see anything. When does your TIC switch to low sensitivity? When does it show colorization, if at all? How can we overcome this issue? Do you know if your camera is a 9 hertz, 16 hertz, 25 hertz, or 30 hertz refresh rate? Because that can affect your decision making and cause you to become disoriented. The other issue when we talk about prolonged zero visibility conditions is the basic issues of firefighters not understanding their TPP or their personal protective equipment. Your TPP is designed to protect you. Unfortunately, most firefighters don't understand how it works. No sight, no feeling, no awareness until it's too late. I challenge you to look up Understanding Firefighter PPE on our YouTube channel and watch that hour and 45 minutes. Especially pay attention to Alice Stoll's work and when you feel pain and what is occurring to you. Because if you wait till you feel pain or see flames, it's too late. You should be well trained in maintaining orientation, but also, more importantly, regaining orientation. Periodically checking conditions. Good friend of mine, Basil Ibrahim, teaches an amazing class on firefighter survival. You should be trained on those types of things because when things go bad, you don't want to panic. And firefighters need to understand that these devices are not thermometers. Don't read the spot temperature, it'll get you killed. But they can provide valuable information about thermal severity. And the other issue I see a lot of is they scan too fast and the TIC can process, which leads to disorientation, along with not wiping the lens of the TIC, which basically causes moisture to build up on it, and then they can't see, which I'll show you some images here in a minute. If you are in an event where you are lost or disoriented due to collapse, stop, look, listen, feel, call your mayday, get low if possible, and scan. The majority of TIC classes I attended told me to start my scan high. You start your scan high with any thermal imaging camera, you're going to pick up more heat first, and then the camera, most of the pixels will switch to low gain or low sensitivity, causing you a loss of detail. Start low. Even smoke diver classes teach that. Look for hose lines, layout features, baseboards, door casing, door features, vents. Look, then scan across the middle. Look for doors, door handles and knobs like I talked about. They're made of metal. Windows, window frames. And then when you get to the high part and you're looking at the ceiling, yes, look for heat, convection currents as the door open, closed. Find common points like move to the corner and then scan down anywhere between 1 to 3 feet below that ceiling. In most cases, you're going to find a door casing. Even in hoarding conditions like Ryan Pennington talks about, when stuff's piled everywhere, they're not going to block the door all the way up to the 6 foot in the pathways anyways, unless you're in extreme conditions. The other thing that I see probably more often than not that has caused firefighters to lose any faith in thermal imaging cameras is steam development. Most firefighters do not know that every time you wipe your face piece, you should have already wiped the lens of your TIC. The front of that device does not have a windshield wiper on it. It's a germanium window, which is a thin piece of metal, develops moisture on it, and it diminishes the image greatly, if not causing a gray screen. So steam obscures your vision, but it also will stop the TIC from working well at all. So you've got to wipe that lens of the TIC periodically. You've got to get down and realize that if you see a gray or all white screen, which looks like just uniform temperatures, most likely you are either above the fire in a high moisture content environment, or you have not wiped the lens at all. So if you remove that moisture and stay low, it'll improve image quality, thereby regaining details with that environment. Remember, if you search above the fire, conditions are going to stink anyway. So wipe the lens, wipe the face piece, find corners, stay low. Because if you look at these two images, these are images where moisture was building up on the fire X, and it degraded that image quality. I'm going to show you one that's even better. This is an entry point with a FLIR camera going up the stairs for my good friend and instructor, Chief Lightly. And this is when they're exiting, failing to wipe the lens. This is in about a minute and a half difference. Look at the difference in picture quality. That's because of moisture. That's not the camera's fault. That's the end user's fault. And when we talk about locating victims or firefighters, understand that as a person is in that environment, whether they're a firefighter or a victim, they're going to present differently than most places teach you. You heat up in fire gear, your gear is going to blend in with the background. If you're dead as a victim, you're going to either blend in with the background or you will show up dark, depending on the background, the body temperature, and the type of camera, whether it's in high or low sensitivity. A firefighter who's down, who is breathing, their SCBA will stand out because they have air in their bottle. Now, if you're overseas, like my friends at IFRT, and they've got the cool covers on their bottles look like sweaters, you're not going to see that. So you got to make sure you know where you're at, and context is everything. Human victims will be in obvious locations, firefighters will not. Read the RIT studies where firefighters go. They run towards the fire. We do crazy things when we get under the influence of hydrogen cyanide, carbon monoxide, and panic. You need to understand that. Read about Brett Tarver, Jeff Bowen, and my department in Pineville, and when you read about Richard Shelter's death, you will see all those similarities. And this is when I was talking about your gear will blend in. A firefighter, such as an ignition officer who's been going in and out of the fire, the gear starts to absorb energy and match the background. If they stand far enough away, they might even disappear. But because their gear is starting to match the background, no contrast, no detail. So make sure as a RIT team, you're in one of those environments where everything's the same temperature. Wipe the lens, get low, and look for shape identification, helmets, boots, gloves, SCBAs. Scan those collapse zones and holes in the floor if a firefighter has been reported to be trapped. You may only pick up a small signature or small detail, but if you haven't been practicing looking for that, you're not going to do it under stress. You're not. I'm just telling you, we're going to fail to our base level. We're going to miss something and live with regret. So we need to train for those things because it's not if they'll happen, it's when they happen. We work in an extremely hazardous occupation where people die. It is a fact. It says it on your turnout gear that firefighting is inherently hazardous to your health and you can be injured and killed doing this job. Even the best firefighters can. But we can do better by training, education, and using technology to our advantage. And we can train firefighters to identify objects, such as things I've mentioned already, such as doors. The right image here is a Fire Pro X looking up the stairs in Buchanan Fire Department when we did our search class with Joey Bax's department, one of my lead instructors there. You can see the door frame, you can see the stair rails. We can identify windows, stair rails, drop ceiling tiles, door casing, vents. And as you see in the MSAI TIC, some of you have emailed me and mentioned about it prior to the webinar, you can see the hose line pretty good. So you can pick up devices that can pick up details that can help you through these devices. And these devices, ladies and gentlemen, are situational awareness TICs. And the reason I tell you that is we did a study with Firehouse Magazine in 2020. We were one of the contributors to it. And over 40% of the American Fire Service did not know the difference between situational awareness TICs and decision-making TICs. All these that you see on the screen are situational awareness TICs from different manufacturers, different performance specs and rates. If you scan that QR code, it goes to one of the first webinars we did with Situational on the understanding the difference between the two types of TICs. It's free. You can use it. You can share it. It's there for you. Please do so because you need to know your camera. Maybe you don't have a seat camera. That's fine. I want you to learn your camera. I'm not going to sell you a camera. I'm trying to educate you so you can use your camera and know the difference between a 9 hertz camera and a 16 or 25 or 30 hertz camera. You better know, because if you don't, you're going to be in big trouble. And we have 1,000 hours of burn time on these devices. We're just starting on the Fire Pro 300, but if you scan this QR code, it goes to a document that explains the differences of all the ones listed here. The K1, a K2, the original Seek Reveal Pro, the first Seek Fire Pro, the Seek Fire Pro X, MSAI TIC, the MSA Lunar, which we just did over 227 hours of burn time with, the Scott site, and we're working on the Fire Pro 300 now on boats. We posted these results for you. You can look at it. You can decide. That's my dad's motto. We test, we demonstrate, you decide. That's Project Kill Flashovers model. I believe in it. You need to make your own educated decision. And we even made it even more easier so you could find specific ones about your model. Seek Thermal's kind enough to sponsor this webinar, but if you have another brand, I don't want you to feel slighted. I want you to find the resources for your device. iTic, K1, or K2, all here for you. Scan them, use them, share them. They go to our website. They're free. They're meant for you to share. I'm not trying to get you to buy something. I'm trying to get you to buy into saving your life and saving others. Learn your tool. That's the goal. By the way, this cool photo on the left is from Joey Baxter and JB Photo. It takes amazing photos. Okay? So let's talk about the products that Seek Thermal offer to you and how they can help you. They came out with the Fire Pro originally, and then the Fire Pro X. The Fire Pro X was a big step up. It's a much better product than the original Fire Pro. This camera is better insulated. This camera has superior image quality and has one of the key game-changing features that no other camera manufacturer offers, called mixed gain mode. Each pixel switches independently, so you don't have to worry about complicated symbols and color palettes changing. It does it automatically. There's 3 color palettes. It is the only 320 by 240 resolution camera on the market until the Fire Pro 300 just came out. Not intrinsically safe, but it is IP67 rated, which means it's ingress protection rated against dust and water intrusion. If you want a great way to cure insomnia, I can send you an article on ingress protection. It'll put you right to sleep, but you'll understand it. And these are your 3 color palettes that are offered in this camera. Please make sure you educate your firefighters that fire mode and survey mode are the only 2 they should use. Rainbow is for demonstration purposes only. It is not for fire attack. It is not something that most firefighters are even trained on. Thermographers call it the most frustrating color palette in the industry, usually designed to impress clients. We don't have small, minute differences in temperature in a fire. We're not quantitative thermographers. We're not looking for tiny, little, small, specific, accurate measurements. We're looking for big differences. We're looking for anomalies. What's wrong? And that's why we use the fire mode, which shows color at 302, beginning at yellow, or survey mode, which shows color as early as 150, because I would bet every fire department out there runs more false alarms and smells and bells than anything else. This is your color palette for the Fire Pro X. It's pretty simple. You can screenshot this, laminate it, put it up over the urinal, call it potty training, whatever you want to do. But you need to commit it to memory, because you're not going to see color on this device till 302 degrees. That starts with yellow. You're going to see orange around 600, red at 800, and then leading to purple. Trust me, you don't want to see purple. Seen it a couple times. It didn't work out real well. This is a great example of using survey mode in this device. Many firefighters are taught when they check a multi-story building, check floor below for layout. This is a metal building with concrete floors. We walk the floor below and we have it in survey mode. The further away you are from the fire, the earlier you need threat identification. Let me say that again. The further you are away from a fire, the earlier you need threat identification, which means early color temperature correlation, not late, not 500 degrees, not 1,000 degrees. You need something that picks up color early, trying to warn you, hey, when you get to that next room, it's hot. So watch as we walk into this room and scan the ceiling. Now it's 2 inches of concrete over our head with metal decking. Yellow starts at 150 apparent temperatures, which is an estimate, not an exact measurement. And orange and red get up to around 300 degrees apparent temperatures, which are uncompensated temperature measurements. That is an estimate. Remember that. These are not thermometers, but that has given me, as a firefighter, a good idea that when we hook into the standpipe, the floor below, and when we make the top of the stairs, that we are entering an environment that's going to be warm. And we should go down the hallway with the nozzle open, not closed. Okay? And I put this in here because I believe the fire service has a big problem. And the big problem is that 68% of America is protected by a combination of volunteer departments that are responding with 10 or less people, not all at once. And the odds are somewhere in America right now, there's a firefighter stretching that hose line by him or herself. I know this. I've visited these departments, and to tell them that they have to wait on somebody with a decision-making camera is hazardous to their health. If they have a situational awareness camera that can simply point out, hey, that right side of the house is hot, that's where you need to stretch your line. No, this is not a decision-making camera. No, it's not going to give you the detail that a higher resolution camera will, but at least they know which way to go, which way to stretch their line, and if it's in the attic. And that's using survey mode because they're using it early. And that is a benefit for firefighters. If you have the Fire Pro X, I want you to know that we've made things easier for you already. We have this QR code and all these educational videos on our YouTube channel ready for you to go. And the Fire Pro 300, we're going to have even more videos on thermal.com for you to view soon too. So these are already ready, already set. Just all you got to do is scan the QR code, go to our YouTube channel, and use them. Why you shouldn't trust the spot temperature, why you need to wipe the lens. There's even an evaluation where you can hear my brutal, honest opinion about the pros and cons of the device. Personal safety and how it's important to us. Understanding mixed gain mode, which is a topic most people don't understand. And then my personal favorite one is situational awareness and rapid intervention. I think next to survey mode, that's the most underemphasized reason these devices should be on firefighters, is to help find other firefighters and get them out of a jam. Now, I want you to hear about something that is a game changer. I've been involved with the development of this with an amazing team through TIC Thermal. I've worked with manufacturers before, but I've never worked with one that actually not only listened, but implemented what firefighters had to say. They said, we're not firefighters. We want to hear what firefighters have to say. We took firefighter feedback. We took my team's feedback. We took personal feedback. We sat with them in meetings in California and argued sometimes over some of the things in this. And this thing is a game changer. It's a little bit wider than a cell phone. It's better insulated. It's got buttons that you can actually operate with a gloved hand, and it performs better than anything else out there. If you know me, you know I teach a concept called the gangster grip, where every camera on the market is oriented by vertical by horizontal. So you got to turn the camera sideways to get that floor to ceiling gangster grip field of view. You don't have to do that with this one. It's already flipped. Most of you asked for that, so there it is, 52 by 47, widest field of view on the market. Has the same temperature range as its counterpart, the Fire Pro X or the Attack Pro. Uses mixed gain mode, which we'll talk about. Has two color palettes, TI Basic, which is your fire mode, and Survey, which is your investigative mode. It has 76,800 pixels that are enhanced with a software called SV1, so you got better image quality. It has a refresh rate of 25 hertz. The only other camera that comes close is an MSA TIC that has a 30 hertz refresh rate. No other thermal imaging camera, situational awareness camera on the market has that refresh rate. Remember that. It has the lowest thermal sensitivity on the environment, on the market, which gives you better detail in that environment. And it has a 6-hour battery life. And it doesn't get in your way because it weighs just a little bit over 300 grams. And this is something I want you to think about with me for a second. As I've been teaching this for 13 years, the most confusing and complicated part of teaching thermal imaging is getting firefighters to understand gain changes, high and low sensitivity. These are all the ones that I'm aware of that are used in fire service TICs today, from single gain to dual gain to tri-gain and now mixed gain. Previously, before NFPA, you had all kind of symbols indicating when the camera switched to low sensitivity or low gain. An L in the MSA 5000s, an EI in some of the Scott products and the Bullards, and in some of the Scott products, they just simply said hot. So if they didn't know what that meant other than hot, they didn't know that the pixels had to adjust. The entire temperature span had to adjust to focus in on that amount of heat. And you lost detail in the areas you needed to see, which were down low, where victims might be found. And then you got tri-gain, which was high, medium, low, high, low, extended low. And some of them, the color temperature correlation changed each time it switched. So you had to memorize 3 different color temperature charts under stress. No, not happening for me. And then you come up with something that's a game changer called mixed gain. No indicator. You look at the screen, it tells you what it is. No valuable real estate loss. If each pixel switches on its own independently, this pixel says it's 302, it's yellow. If the one next to it is 300, it'll be white. No other camera does that. It colorizes earlier, and it doesn't allow you to lose detail in the areas you need it most. You look at this picture of a hose line laying down on the floor in this Connex box. You can see the hose line, you can see the floor, and you can see the color of the heat coming over your head. This is the improved image clarity you're going to get in both low and high heat. Has little to no lag in scanning, which is a huge benefit. Delays, hear me when I say this, delays in a fire service camera in an environment when you are lost or disoriented can equal death. If you have to wait for the camera to catch up and you are burning up, are you going to wait? No, you're not. You need something that can keep up with you and move along with you. This is simple, easy to interpret, no additional icons, no fancy complex color palettes. It's black, gray, white, yellow, orange, red, which is what TI Basic recommends. You start seeing color at 302. You don't deal with all the icons, the switches, the back and forth, waiting on it to catch up. It simply presents an image to you and allows you to interpret it, hopefully with your training, knowledge, and experience. So this is an example of what that will look like. I want you to look at looking towards the fire and the stairs to the right. is this is a basement fire attack scenario. You clearly see the heat moving over their head, convection currents, while still seeing the detail down low, which usually what I end up seeing with most cameras is they perform well in high sensitivity or low. They don't do both. This camera breaks the rules. The first thing I was taught in thermography was no thermal imaging camera sees all temperature ranges at once. Well, not until the team from Seek Thermal and Dr. Parrish came along and created a software that allows it to do that. That's what innovation is, ladies and gentlemen. That's what the fire service has been needing. Something that can help you do your job better, safer, smarter, and what we call intelligently aggressive. This is what's been needed for some time. And it's taken a while for a team to come in that can actually disrupt the market in a good way. Now, I want you to see the difference between optical and thermal using this camera and what kind of detail you're going to get as a firefighter. The first 30 seconds are just GoPro view, and the second 30 seconds is all your FirePro 300 view. Now, I want you to think about what's been missing. When I talked about that disorientation study earlier, about them being surprised or overwhelmed by rapid fire development, this is why. This is what we miss. This is why I stopped the video for a very important reason. This is looking back to the back of a 40-foot container where it tees into another container and they go to their left and out of the structure. I want you to see how much heat is behind the actual crew that's doing their orientation burn that they can't see without the device itself. Keep in mind, thermal imaging cameras see surface temperatures, not gas temperatures, so we're not seeing everything. We're just seeing the effects of heat on those surfaces and that heat loss as it changes and starts to heat up the other surfaces. So it's much higher than we actually even realize. And I want you to see how detailed that firefighter is. They're holding the camera and looking towards the fire versus the firefighters a good 15, 20 feet away. That's our watch group. We do two types of groups, a work and a watch. And then we kind of let them critique each other because they saw it 2 times. But you can clearly see the thermal layer over their head and how far back it's gone. You think about how many times you attacked the fire and did a hit and move, and it's moved past you, and you didn't even know it. This is what we want firefighters to see. As Seek Thermal says, we want you to get your sight back. We want to help you regain basically your dominance on the fire ground. I think for too long, we've been at an unfair advantage against an enemy that's always been ahead of us. You have the gear, you have the training, now you have the sight to go in here and take this thing to another level. This is your color palette for the FirePro 300. It is the same as the Attack Pro. Begins at 302, just like you did with the FirePro X. The difference is there is no purple at the end because NFPA TI Basic recommends black, gray, white, yellow, orange, red. Red engaging at 800, which is earlier than most, and maxing out at 1022. I've heard many firefighters say, I need 1200, I need 1500, I need 2000 degrees. Really? Do you really need to see that high? When your face piece melts at an average of 356 degrees. I can melt my daughter's bicycle from Walmart at 1075. At what point do you realize that I need to do something based on what I see instead of worrying about whether it can read 1500, 1700, 2000 degrees? You're not a quantitative thermologist doing furnace inspections looking at a 3000 degree furnace. We're not. We may think we are, but we're not. We need to look at this from a qualitative perspective and see that it's a lot of heat. What are we going to do to fix that, mitigate that? What are our tactics, decisions, and things that we know to do in training Now, because we have this device that allows us to see the problem, now fix it. I read a paper from a very smart thermographer, a DOD thermographer, and he said, you can't fix a problem that you can't see. Think about that. And if you think about all the different types of light that's around us, from visible light to infrared to shortwave to midwave to radio waves, the human eye only sees 0.3% of all light. So 99.7% of things that are happening around us, we can't even see in normal everyday life. Now you're in a fire with zero visibility or limited visibility, with heat moving all around you. And we won't even pick up this device because all kind of bad reasons. I need you to look at the problem and fix the problem and understand that now you have the ability to see it better than you ever had before. If you see this short little video on thermal rebound, it fixes some of the problems that we talked about with firefighters not opening the nozzle. They briefly open the nozzle across the ceiling, they close it, and it comes right back over their head in a matter of seconds. This is why we show firefighters what they're not seeing. This device can tell you if you're alone on the nozzle and you think you've knocked it back and your second healed person back is searching the adjacent room, and you think, man, it's getting warm. I need to look. And you look and realize, oh, it's over me. It's to the right of me. It's behind me. Because I hear it all the time. Fire behind you. Really? Can you see in zero visibility flames? Yes, maybe. But can you see heat? No, you cannot. And by the time you feel it in most turnout gear, your body is approaching near what they call alarm time, which is a 2nd degree burn. If you experience needle stick, bee sting like pain sensations, you already passed your gear being saturated with energy. Your TPP is being exhausted. You are no good at that point. You need to understand that our job should be to see the heat, kill the heat, not see how much heat we can take. My friends at Multiple Calls podcast say that. So why is this device important for you? Whether you use this device or anything out there, I need you to understand that situational awareness is a big deal, as Dr. Gasaway talks about. But I think the thermal situational awareness of this environment has been left out far too long, and they've had low resolution devices that didn't do a good job of helping you with that. This device, nothing else comes close to it. It has the widest field of view on the market, no awkward orientation. You point which way you want to go. You can hold it this way, you can hold it sideways, whatever way you want to. But if you hold it straight forward like this gentleman's holding here, you can see the floor and the ceiling in one view, the firefighter, the hose line, the heat above, one shot. It gives you the highest resolution available with mixed gain mode, 25 hertz refresh rate, a germanium lens on the front that's easy to wipe, by the way. It has image enhancement with SV1 technology, has the lowest thermal sensitivity on the market. Some decision-making cameras are not this low. And it has video and photo capture. I'm going to have this strapped to every one of my instructors because we're going to be filming 4 at a time instead of 1 at a time now. I'm going to be able to film classes like we've never been able to do before. And think about this. It's got a 6-hour battery life, but I want to ask you this question right here. I put at the bottom of image and video capture. How many helmet cams do we have out in the fire service today? They're really cool. Till you go in zero visibility. What's your footage look like then? Not that great. Now I've got something that's filming all the time for training purposes, for whatever you want to use. There's some awkward discussions that get into liability, but if you are being smart about it, you're going to have some of the best video to help your department, to locate victims, to help your firefighters, because you're now training and improving. That's something that nothing else has. This gives you the best image clarity without complex mode changes. It doesn't delay information to you. The orientation has been fixed. It's straightforward, and it's better insulated. I know a lot of people complained about not having enough insulated properties in the first generation FirePro. The FirePro X was better. Now the FirePro 300 is a game changer. It's super well insulated. It can take up to 302 degrees internal temperature for up to 5 minutes. You look at most of them, very few are built that well. So there's some that are pretty tough, but you got to make sure that it's tough enough for the environment you're going to work in. Okay, it's simple, it's easy to understand. It makes a difference. If you have the FirePro X versus a FirePro 300, or looking at either one of them, we've got a chart here provided by Seek Thermal that breaks it down for you. I believe that should be 24 by 32 on the FirePro X as far as the field of view. And the FirePro 300 is 57 by 42. Look at the difference in battery runtime. You got good image quality with the FirePro X. You got superior image quality with the FirePro 300. You got to hold it in your hand like flat with the Fire Pro X, whereas the Fire Pro 300, you hold it like a cell phone. Hold it which way you want to go. It has better insulative properties. If you look at the durability, the Fire Pro X couldn't take the drop like the Fire Pro 300 can. Fire Pro 300 is tested the same way as an NFPA camera is, 6 feet on the concrete. You got faster frame rate. You got 17 hertz in the Fire Pro X, which is 16 point something if I remember correctly, and the Fire Pro 300 is between 24 and 25 hertz. But I want you to look at that thermal sensitivity rating. Millikelvin means 1,000th of a degree. 1 millikelvin is 1,000th degree. The lower the number, the better your chances of seeing temperature differentials between objects of similar temperature, such as a 100-degree pile of clothes and a 92-degree skin temperature of a victim laying on the floor. This gives you better awareness than anything else out there, period. And if you missed the initial webinars we did for you, we made it easy for you. There's the first one, understanding the 2 main types of thermal imaging cameras, which I showed at the beginning of the webinar. Scan that top QR code, you'll learn the difference in the two. Please share that with your department. Then if you're interested in any of these products that they offer, you've got to understand mixed gain mode and why it makes a difference for you and makes your life easier. You scan that bottom QR code, it takes you to that webinar. So this webinar has given you not just 1 hour, but 3 hours of resources in addition to even more. If you want to purchase a new camera, I tell you this with the utmost importance. Do not buy one based on what it looks like in the day room. You don't buy a car without test driving it. You need to burn with it. And we have a lesson plan on our website that tells you how to test it. Pick your top 3 picks based on the article that's on there. Which TIC should I buy? You take those top 3 picks and you test them with either a small scale heat source, such as a Palmer Dollhouse Max Firebox. I don't recommend the Bone Bell, but some people, that's all they had. And my personal favorite is to go from there into a live fire environment and do it again so you can see the difference when smoke, heat, moisture affects your image quality. And then compare them, grade them 1 through 5, and you make a decision, not the salesperson. You, as the firefighter, the educated consumer. Everybody specs turnout gear, they spec trucks, they spec hose, they spec everything. But they'll buy a thermal imaging camera based on what somebody told them or what somebody else bought. Or, you know, we always buy this brand, so we're going to buy this. It's not a good idea. And please do me a favor. If y'all have multiple brands of thermal imaging cameras in your department, that's like having multiple brands of hose. Bad idea. You got multiple levels of friction loss, reaction force, you got different nozzles. That's not a good idea. You need to have a uniform plan that everybody can understand. Pick one brand that you can stick with. Have you a 3 to 5 year replacement plan, because technologies like cell phones, you're going to have to replace it. It's just a fact of life. The fire departments that don't budget for that are going to be in trouble. They need to think ahead. And here's the 2 webinars I gave you. And then this is the information of where all this stuff came from. I'm not smart enough to risk your life on my opinion. The stats I've quoted on line of duty desks come from the U.S. Fire Administration. You go straight to their website. You can pull them yourselves. You can Google the United States Firefighter Disorientation Study written by William Moyer. Print it out, read it. It's free. If you want to buy the book from Penwell Fire Engineering on preventing firefighter disorientation, I highly recommend it. There's some things in there you probably won't agree with him, but I can tell you this man was ahead of his time, and he's seen things that were happening then, that are still happening now, that we need to fix. We may argue about the solutions, but we need to quit killing firefighters the same way over and over again and calling it heroic. We need to prevent it. If you are in the building and bad things are happening around you and we don't stop it, that's negligence. And saying we didn't know it was coming doesn't work anymore. There's more than enough data and research and line of duty desks and now devices that can tell you it is going bad. You need to do something. I'm not telling you got to retreat. I'm not telling you got to evacuate, but you got to do something about it. And if you don't, it's not if or when, our name's on a report, and then we are all in trouble. Do not wait until your department experiences a tragedy to do change and training and make this important to you. And my personal favorite resources are the last 2, which is Project Mayday by Don Abbott. It's free. Look it up. Read it. It's free. I mean, his PowerPoint skills, not so great, but some of the best Mayday references and data to date. Nobody else I've ever seen put that much work into it. It's phenomenal. And then if you want an actual research paper on thermal imaging use, it was written by a firefighter who traveled around the world and gathered the data for us. His name is Michael Whitty. It's called Maximizing Thermal Imaging Use in Emergency Service. You can type it in on Google. It'll pop up. It's free. Everything I posted here, with the exception of that textbook, is free. The 2 other webinar links are free. Why? Because I don't want you to die, get hurt, or a firefighter die around you and wonder, what could I have done, or maybe now I should change. Tragedy spurs regulation in the American Fire Service. Every time an NFPA standard is changed, it is because we have killed a bunch of people. We've got to stop that. We owe it to each other to be better. If it is truly for them, ladies and gentlemen, then why aren't we doing things the most efficient and intelligently aggressive way we can, so we can all put out the fire faster, find the victim faster, and get home to our families? That's what the point of this webinar is. Whether you buy a camera or not, that's up to you. I want you to understand that I put 2 situational awareness cameras on the back of engine 2 before anybody thought these were important. And I simply taught my guys on the back what to look for and said, turn them on, don't play with them. If you get in trouble, this is what you look for. Because I didn't want to knock on their door and tell their family I didn't do everything I could to save their lives. I've had spouses come up to me at conferences and ask how they could buy one for their husband or wives who work on a job. That is impressive. You need to understand that this is a heart-based profession that requires PhD-based knowledge, requires the utmost skill, but we have got to put ego and arrogance aside and realize that technology is not our enemy. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate everything and everyone that attended. We have the slide here that tells you more about the FirePro 300, the specs behind it, and as Brent said, it's going to be at FDIC, and I'm going to be at the SEEK Thermal booth as soon as the show opens. My cadre is doing a hot class, 2 days of intelligently aggressive search. We're teaching firefighters how to use cameras and search. And then I'm going to be at the SEEK Thermal booth. I'm going to have a special guest. My father, Joe Starnes, is going to hang out with us for a little bit. And we're going to be there all week. We look forward to seeing you. You also have my contact information right here and all of our social media information for you. We post something every single day on different brands of cameras and resources and videos. We do this for you. My company works for the fire service. We contract and train and teach and help and learn with manufacturers, but I work for the fire service for the entire hope that I can help save somebody's life. And my guys believe in that. You come hang around with us, you'll figure that out really quickly. God bless you. Thank you for your time today. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you at FDIC.